everybody, this is Burt from Soft Tubes, and I'm back with another film review. Today it is for Men in Black International. Want to say I was kind of excited for this film, and I left a little underwhelmed. Men in Black International, which is straight off the bat, I'm going to say it's a weird title to give this film. It is international. I don't know whether international had to be the name of your film, though. It's way too long and cumbersome and doesn't really make you go, just doesn't inspire anything. But it's one of those strange cases of, it's a sequel, but only just a sequel. It's weird. It points to it being part of the same universe as the previous three Men in Black films in several ways, including the use of some characters from those old films, but they're really just there for no other reason than to be like, look, this is connected to those other films. And it doesn't do anything much more than that, which in some ways I'm thankful for, because I wouldn't want them to be cramming it down my throat that, yeah, this is Men in Black, it's all connected to Men in Black. But at the same time, it'd be nice if it justified itself a little bit better. The problem is it feels so loose that it becomes odd that this is a sequel and not a reboot at this point. I know people don't like reboots, but in this case, maybe it actually would have been better for this film as a whole, given that it doesn't do enough to situate itself as a sequel instead. The CGI in this film is not so great. At first, I was considering that this was a throwback to the original film, in that the original didn't have great CGI, because it kind of couldn't for the time it came out in. It was the 90s, there wasn't a lot of great CGI at the time, especially for a film like this. But the problem is here, even if that's the case, it doesn't excuse how bad it is. Things could have looked a bit cartoonish, but still looked better. There's several characters throughout this film that just don't feel like they exist within the same frame as the live action characters. And even some of the other CGI characters. They just look like they've just been shoved on top of this frame. They don't look like there's even a thought about how they would exist within that world at all. Which is how you want your CGI characters to be, even if they're meant to be kind of odd and out of place. You still want them to look like they're part of that world. And it kept drawing me out every time I saw this character, and I'm like, it doesn't look like they exist in the same reality as the other characters right here. But I'm supposed to believe it. And then there are some that actually look really good and look like they fit. And it's just weird. There's one in particular that seems out of place in a photo they show, but then totally looks in place when they show them later. And I think that's because of the way they framed a lot of that stuff. Most of the issues with the CGI come down to lighting. There's a lot of issues in the way they try to do lighting with the CGI characters and the way that they would look in the lens of the camera for the way that they've been lit. And the lighting was actually a problem I found popped up frequently throughout Men in Black, for me at least. There were times where I was super impressed with how the lighting was done. There are some shots in there that is really good lighting, especially for a not super high expectation studio film. This is not Avengers Endgame. They were not expecting a lot to come out of this, but they still expected something. And there's some pretty good lighting here, and lighting that would have been really good for the CGI. But then the problem is they don't utilize it quite right, or they better have a CGI characters pop up and do stuff, and then they take everything away from that really good lighting that would have helped them into other lighting that just ends up making it look weirder. And it's such a strange thing to watch. And then there's a lot of times in this where the lighting is either bad, it doesn't make logical sense for the light sources in the shot, or it's just flat. There's a lot of really flat lighting in this film that makes it feel too clinical and artificial. It just makes everything flat and really weak. Nothing pops, nothing stands out, nothing sort of looks real. There's no definition to anything. And it doesn't help when you've got characters dressed in dark suits and stuff. Then they're not... If that's not popping at all, if the white and the black is not popping, nothing's popping, then it all just blends in. When, yeah, like... the white and the black should be the thing that's popping out because they're the main characters, and it just never really does that except in a couple of shots. And they're shots where the background is almost entirely white. And that's the only reason they kind of pop out. It's just really uninteresting to look at. I mean, there's some fun to be had in this film, for sure. Hemsworth and Thompson have really good chemistry here, just like they did in Thor Ragnarok. Even if they are both playing somewhat different characters, they still manage to get that same chemistry back. And they do their best to bring something more to this film. And I honestly believe that both of them were having fun with this film, especially like just the idea of being in a Men in Black film. They were having fun. And you can kind of feel that coming off the screen. Fortunately, that's not enough to come over a lot of the issues that have nothing to do with them, which kind of sucks, but so everything else sort of drags them down when it really shouldn't. My biggest problem with this movie, and it might have just been me, was that it's basically supposed to be a comedy, but not enough of the jokes landed in any really satisfying way. And this could purely be me, but I just found there wasn't enough of them landing to justify itself as a comedy, and it just ends up being this kind of slog, really. Just everything becomes more uninspired and uninteresting, and it's just sitting there going like, okay, we're getting to the next scene. And it just needed something to prop itself up to make it a fun ride. A bit more jokes that landed well and had a bit more thought put into them could have made it really more fun to enjoy. Kamal Nanjiani is one of my favorite guys. Like, I love his stuff, and when he pops up in things, and his character in this is probably one of my favorite parts of this film. Even still, I don't know if the people who made and wrote this film knew exactly what they wanted from that character. Like, it gets to points where they actually, like, flip certain things about the character just randomly. There's no real logic to it. They just do it either because it has to lead to a specific joke or moment or allow a plot, device to happen. But it doesn't have any logical sense to it, and it doesn't fit in with what you've already got established about his character. I mean, honestly, there's just an overall inconsistency and uncertainty about this film that kind of makes it feel like they didn't know exactly what this film was, even as they were filming it. And that's a big problem. In a lot of ways, this is a film that just never justifies itself to me. It doesn't have anything in particular to say about anything. It does try several times to start building up ideas. Like, one of them in particular is the idea about romance and love, and how the character that's all like about learning and knowledge and all that should loosen up. And it brings it up as a random conversation that sort of hints at more between the two characters, but then it does nothing with that. That never comes back up. It doesn't actually discuss those ideas. It just puts forward one idea, which is a pretty common idea of, you know, you're all uptight, you should let emotion come through more often. And then it goes nowhere with it. And at least if it had followed that, even if I don't necessarily like that as a trope, it would have been an interesting thing to have the film discuss. It would have been something for the film to discuss. Where it doesn't actually have anything to say about anything, which even a pure popcorn flick should have something to say. It should just say, it doesn't have to be the most high cerebral thing. It just has to say something about bravery or justice or something. It needs just something. God, my nose is really itchy right now. I don't know what's wrong. Sorry about that. And basically, like, there's only a few themes that kind of pop up on a couple of times, and then it just... There's one thing where basically it rushes character development throughout this film. So, like with that thing about letting emotion come through, it's brought up, and there's sort of an implication at the end that the character is opened up to emotion, but only just. It's kind of this thing where, and I use the term character development very loosely with this film, because it basically just goes like, this is a character, and here's a character with a slight change, very slight, and it happened sometime between that point and this point, but there's no area in the film where you really notice that happen. It doesn't actually seem to happen. Like, that's kind of okay in a better film. Like, it would be easier to get away with that if other parts of this film were better, but it's just not good enough to do that. And that's kind of a big problem with this film in general. There's no one part aside from Hemsworth and Thompson that's strong enough to outdo all the bad stuff, and even their chemistry isn't quite enough to get over the fact that everything else is all right at best. There's very few things that are good about this film. And one thing that I kept thinking watching the film is Men in Black really reminded me of Fantastic Beasts in a few ways. And I'm not a fan of either of the Fantastic Beasts films. I think the first one's better than the second one, but only just, and I don't think it's a good film. It's very haphazardly put together, and that's part of what it does here. Like, why it reminds me of it here is because of the way it tries to include different elements. Rather than determining the most effective way for everything to serve the plot or the characters or something in the film, and then doing that, it just sort of instead prefers to, like, simply put things in there just because it's trying to flesh things out. But in doing so, it actually makes everything feel more artificial and flat. It just doesn't add anything special. It just keeps throwing in, like, the main thing that made me think of it is all the different aliens it keeps showing. It keeps showing these really interesting, really different aliens, and does some really cool stuff with that. But it never actually goes anywhere with it, essentially. Like, none of it actually fleshes anything out, even though it keeps trying to. And so it just never really builds anything in this film. It's just fluff. And there is a lot of fluff in this film. There is so much fluff that you're spending most of the movie, you're just getting through the fluff to get to the bits that actually matter. And even then, they only just matter enough to get the plot going towards the end so the credits can roll. Thing is, yeah, like I said at the beginning of this, I was actually keen for Men in Black International. I love Thompson and Hemsworth, particularly together, and I thought the trailers for this film looked pretty damn fun, and that was what I was expecting. I didn't think this was going to be a good film, but I thought it would be more fun than it is. Sadly, it doesn't live up to what it could have been, and so it's only going to get 3.5 stars out of 5 from me. I just wanted something better and I didn't quite get it. And that's basically all I can say about it. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys thought of Men in Black International. If you saw it, let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in seeing it, let me know as well. Be interested to gauge what the audience is. There wasn't a lot of people when I went and saw it, so I don't know how well it's doing. Also, yeah, if you like this review, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. And if you're new to the channel, you like reviews, you like trailer reactions, you like video games, and all of that stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because that'll keep you up to date on everything we're doing here. And yeah, there's a few things coming. I literally just came back from seeing Tolkien. I saw Men in Black yesterday. Finally getting to do it tonight, so this will be out tomorrow. And Tolkien I just saw, so that'll either be the next day, so tomorrow of this video, or the day after. So yeah, that's coming up. And then Toy Story comes out this week, so there'll be a review for that coming up. So there's a lot of reviews coming up. I'm pretty sure there's another film coming out too. There's a couple that are out that I haven't seen. I keep debating about seeing Secret Life of Pets 2. Haven't seen number 1, but I'm debating about seeing 2 to just do a review on that. It'll be late, but you know, whatever. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming anyway. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, that! Never run on the walls. Red rum! Red rum!